How familiar were you with Halo when you first got involved? Obviously, that doesn't really apply to you so much.
Kiki never heard of it.
I'm like showing off. We were small when the first one came out.
Yeah, I hear you both went to some sort of boot camp for that. So.
We got the 343 experience boot
Yeah.
camp. I did it. I went up to Seattle and saw the Halo Museum and met these guys before we ever went over to Budapest. I think you did the boot camp in Budapest.
I didn't get to go to
I know.
Seattle.
Well, you should go. You have to go.
Always.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before season 2, that's my...
The museum's quite special. It's really, really cool.
Yeah.
And also they make the game there, so you get to walk around the studio and see, whatever process the game's in. So for me, I had some interaction with it. I had played it in college with friends, but had only played it in where you're shooting your friends in an open room. I had never played it as a story campaign mode. Mm-hmm. And so for me, that was really the interesting process, is learning about how much story is there, and how much has been laid out. And then obviously getting to go and study it with these guys in a more in-depth manner was an eye-opener.
Halo University.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Wow. When it comes to Master Chief, how is it sort of finding the voice, not only the actual voice of the character sort of physically, but metaphorically as well? And did you have any conversation with Steve Downes, who's the voice actor for the games?
No, I never spoke to him personally, but I mean, there was a great amount of interaction with him just in studying his work.
Yeah.
Obviously I got all the cinematics for the game, so I've seen all the stuff that he's established in the games. And, he's amazing in creating the character, and did so much of establishing that character in the form of Master Chief. What hasn't been established, outside of the games much, some definitely in the novels and some of the other accessory media, is establishing the character of John, and really going into depth into who he is and what makes him tick. And so that was the process of the first season, is, learning a little bit more about him as he learns about himself.
Yeah. Natascha, you've got a very interesting character to deal with. Good, bad, somewhere in between. That must be really interesting to play with.
Yeah, it was really fun. I think also because perspective is everything, and it all depends whose perspective you're looking at her work and her creations from. And perhaps I would all sort of catapult into the future and think, let's just say she does save humanity. What will future generations think of her? Perhaps they'll see her as a savior rather than as a villain. And yet, in our current moral paradigm, obviously, her behavior is questionable. And so there will be a lot of judgment. And what I kind of love is that she seems to be someone who doesn't really care what people think about her. And lots of people say that, but most people do care what people think about them. And she really seems immune to... and so that's just fascinating to play in of itself, someone who is so wrapped up in their own version of what reality can be, and that it shouldn't be what it is, that it can be something that no one else has conceived of yet, and her sense of sort of conviction and purpose. It's very different to me, I suppose, so that's always fun to play. You always, as an actor, want to put someone else's shoes on and live in them for a while, so I found it worryingly liberating.
But I think one of the things that you do naturally have is you have this beautiful curiosity, which is such a big part of the Halsey character. Like, even as you're researching the character and trying to understand who she is, like, curiosity is a huge part of who Halsey is. And I think that's something that's very natural to your personality as well, which I think came through really beautifully.
Well, I think her curiosity trumps her fear, and even her ego, actually, at certain points, that she creates this, Cortana, but and John too, actually, that she's mesmerized by their transgressions. The fact that they sort of slightly surprise her and their behavior isn't as she wants it to be or as she predicted it would be, kind of thrills her, rather than, I suppose the sort of dictator might then try and quash that impulse, but she doesn't seem to. She seems to kind of be intrigued by, the...
Energized.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a great fun. I'm still playing her. I'm excited. We're about to go for round 2.
Yeah. You have talked a bit about the sort of quite a lot of green screen going on throughout the series, obviously, because, you know, aliens and worlds and that sort of stuff. How is that to deal with? I mean, how familiar were you with that process, and was that something that was new to, I mean, either of you? Or
I'd done a fair amount of it, but not on this scale. But I would actually say, there was a lot of green screen, but it didn't feel like much, because most of it was actually built sets and locations that we were shooting at. And then the visual effects were put in afterwards. Mm-hmm. So we did actually very little straight green or blue screen.
More extensions,
it was
so
more
that
adding
space
stuff
you were
in.
working in, yeah.
Yeah, right. So the green,
Yeah.
and some of the UNSC stuff in Reach, where they were outside on the tarmac. Those were like some of the biggest green screen things, where we were just in these big container studios, and then they would put the city of Reach in the distance. That was the part where I remember the green screen the most. But you know, most of it felt like you were dealing with environments that you could interact with, and you were right in the middle of.
Except you had actors on stilts with ping pong ball eyes.
Except for those aliens in tanks.
And poor Natasha had the motion control camera, which is an experience. So
oh yes, because there is a scene where you're playing against yourself as well.
Yeah.
So I mean, that must have been a bizarre experience to sort of watch back, I guess. I mean, apart from to do as well, and then when you see the final finished product, and one of you is bald, so
I love
that
scene.
was interesting to look at. Can I pull that off? Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun. It was weird though, because I won't reveal the identity of one, but it looked like one of my younger brothers. I mean, because he shaved all his hair off once. Identical. So that was quite odd. I was like, how did he?
You should have had your brother come in to read opposite you.
Yeah.
A lot of the shows have started to use volumes for the. Is that something you're maybe looking into going forward for?
yeah, I mean, we looked a little bit at season 1. We're continuing to look at it for season 2. I think, you know, something that is really important for Halo is a huge sense of scope and scale. And we really dedicated a lot of very fine detail to our sets. And so, you know, the volumes are so interesting because they give you a lot of capabilities, but they also come with their own restrictions.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, we're really trying to understand. And you don't want to do it because, it just saves money. It needs to be sort of additive to the world you're trying to build. So we're actually we're looking to see if that makes sense for us in some settings or not.
Star Trek Discovery has one you can nick there.
I know. I've been there in my head. But ultimately, again, it comes down, is it right for the world we need to build?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're exploring.
Absolutely. Pablo, the suit.
Yeah.
I know you've talked before about that sort of being incredibly heavy, somewhat restrictive to move around in, as amazing as it looks. Are there any tweaks coming for that for the second season, maybe to make it slightly easier to work in?
Yep.
Now you've done it once?
Yep, we're working on it. One of our goals across all departments is trying to take the lessons that we learned from season 1 and how to make things more effective, more streamlined, and work better for us in season 2. So definitely costumes and suits are one of the things that we're looking at, trying to make work a little better for our purposes.
Yeah. I do want to ask about the Covenant language. Was that something that you specifically developed for the TV show? I can't remember whether that was.
We did, and we had done some. In the games we've had Sangheili language, but we actually started from fresh with the show and worked with David Peterson, who had done the Dothraki language for Game of Thrones, and he's brilliant. And so, so that was developed for the show. We'll continue to sort of grow that in season 2. I think as extraordinary as the work he did was obviously the work Charlie Murphy did in speaking it.
Amazing.
Yeah, just extraordinary. But yes, that was created for the show, and we'll continue to build on that.
And those voices for the prophets.
Yeah.
Are those people who were voice actors from the games?
No, those are they weren't voice actors from the game, but they're quite well-known actors in their own right.
Fantastic, all of them.
And we were doing facial capture along with their voices, and when we were shooting that, it was just extraordinary. I was just mesmerized by I think it was Julian Bleach who had done Mercy, and it was extraordinary to watch him acting through that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting sort of new way of capturing performances these days. One sort of final question for you, which I usually end on this for everybody. So, if you had the opportunity to work on any TV show, can be something from the past, something present, or something future genre you've never worked on before, what would it be?
Wow.
Is there a sort of dream show that you'd like to get involved with?
No. For me, my personally, this is separate from the Halo situation. For me, my goal as an actor is to stretch myself as far as possible in as many different directions as possible. So if it was something that I was looking to do next, it would be something as drastically different from this as I could possibly choose. So I don't have something that I'm like itching to reboot in this world of reboots. But it would just be something different from what's happening here.
Natascha?
I'd like to do an improvised show that no one knows is improvised. So where you don't see the sagginess or the pauses, or perhaps in the edit it's tightened up. I'd love to. And not play myself. Play a character. But I had an experience once where, even though it was about Henry VIII, so it was very different, sort of Elizabethan English that we were speaking. We rehearsed for a while, and then we had to improvise. We just had story points, and it was terrifying but utterly thrilling, and I'll never forget that. I'd love to do something like that again.
And tweak that question slightly for you, sort of say, if you could take any TV show and turn it into a video game or have something that's...
Oh, interesting.
That is what sort of your
Well,
job
that's a
is
big one just to spring out there. So a TV show into a video game. That's a tough one. I think, something probably adventure-based. I'm trying to think what I am
Game of Thrones might be a good
loving watching right now. Yeah, there's been some Game of Thrones.
They already made a video game out of it?
Yeah, it's sort of a narrative,
There's a
narrative-based.
Telltale.
Telltale does a... you caught me out on that one. I'm always thinking the other way around. So
Breaking Bad is like Grand Theft Auto, basically.
Exactly. Intriguing. Orange is the New Black.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, I think that's my time, but it's been lovely chatting with all three of you. I'm looking forward to the show launching in the UK fully on Paramount Plus. It's been great. Having seen the first season, now I'm looking forward to the second season, particularly to see where things go. So
Excellent.
Thank you, David.
Thank you so much.